Well, hello, thank you for joining me today in this session. My name is Ron, and I'm with CamMastery.com, where you can go to learn more about making great videos with Camtasia. What I like to do once a week is answer some questions that come in, and this week is just like every other, and I have 3 questions I want to get through, and so I'm going to head over there and, well, yeah, let's just go ahead and do that now. So the 3 things I want to look at today, the first question is on the difference between gain and the volume bar. Second question is on cursor effects and how to add some cursor effects. And then the third question is about animating a bar chart technically, but we're just going to call it animating a rectangle. All right, so that's what we want to get through today. So let's head over to that first question. Let's look at that nice and big full screen. What's the difference between gain in the properties and volume, which is controlled by the audio line in the track itself? So when I'm in the course and I'm talking about volume, I'd say, hey, there's a couple different ways you can use this. You can change the gain or you can change the audio. So let's head over to Camtasia and take a look at what we're talking about here. So when we look at this particular track, so I'm down here in the lower part and I'm looking at the audio specifically. I said what you can do is you can click on this and you can drag this audio bar. So what you see when I click on it, I can grab this audio bar and I can drag it up or down. And you can see that it's giving me a certain percentage when I do that. Now, I don't want to actually do that, so I'm going to Control Z to get out of that. That's number one. You can just adjust the clip volume. So just this one piece, you can see that when I do that, none of the other pieces are changing. So I can make this part lower, I can make this one lower, and all the other ones stay the same size or same level. I'm going to undo both of those because I don't want that. If you don't see the audio bar, that's probably because you are on a clip that, or you are on a tab. Let's go full screen here. You're on a tab that doesn't have the audio in the upper right. And this is what I mean. Let me find a piece of audio and video together. So this, I think we'll have it. Let's try and drag this guy over. And I can click on this. And of course, oh, there we go. So there is some audio here. You can see that I use finger snap in order to get synchronized between my audio and my video. So if we think back to something like the old clapper boards or whatever, they would come down and they would do something like this to make a sound. It would be a little spike in the audio. What I do is I just go like that to synchronize my audio. So that's what I'm doing here. So you can see here in the audio that there's some, and there's no bar. Like I'm clicking on this. Where's the green bar? And the issue is, whoop, I went over too far. The issue is that here in the properties panel, if we zoom in here in the upper right, we can see that I'm currently looking at the properties of the video itself. So I'm not changing the video properties. What I want to change is the audio properties. And when I go to that tab and zoom back, then I can see, okay, yep, that green bar is there. If I go back, green bar is gone. Back to the audio tab, green bar is there. So if you are working in an area where the bar isn't there, again, just go to the properties of that item, go to the audio tab, and you should be able to see that. Okay, back to Camtasia. So that is the first part of the first question is with this bar. And then what I'm going to do is just delete that because I don't need that in this video. The next part of the question is about when I use one over the other. So I showed you if I want to just adjust a single clip, I can click, drag up or down for that. Instead, what I would use the gain for is to think about the entire project or an entire selection of audio clips. For example, here I might look at my audio and say, oh, it's a little too high or a little too low. I want all the audio. I want to adjust all of these at one time. Can I do that? Yep, absolutely, I can do that. So what I'm going to do, let's zoom in down here at the bottom, is I'm going to go in and I want to say, I want to get all of these things. Let's zoom in even more. I want to select all of these audio clips. And to do that, one way to do that is just click and drag all of these, which I'm not going to do. I'm instead just going to right click here and on the track itself. And I want to say, I want to select all the media on that track. So now it selects every audio item on that track. And then I'm going to go up here to my gain And when I lower this gain, you can see that the volume at the bottom goes down. Or when I go up, I can blast everything out and make it all too loud. So as I adjust this gain left and right, you can see that it's adjusting the level across all of those. All right, now I don't want to do that, so I'm going to undo that change and just leave it at 100%. So that's the first part of this question, or actually that is the question. When do I use one over the other? Audio bar, if you just want to change one clip, one specific area. Gain, if you want to use, basically if you want to apply a change across all of these clips within a certain track. It's also good practice for you to put all of your audio clips in one track so that you can do that very easily. Select all the clips on that track. What you could do, and I don't recommend this, is you could put audio clips on different tracks. If there was some reason to do that, maybe you could do that, but it's just good practice. Try and keep like items within a single track. All right, let's go over to our next question. And that question is, as I understand, cursor effects. Okay, so a couple of parts on this cursor effects question. There are a couple of ways of asking this. The real root of the question, after I dug a little deeper, is can I change the cursor after the fact? And so what this person was saying, let's go over to Camtasia real quick. What this person was saying is here at the bottom, I have this screen recording, and what he was saying was the mouse, right now the mouse is at this point. What if, is there a way for me to move the mouse to the right in the recording? And the simple answer is no, you can't do that. There's no way to move the cursor after the fact. You have to get the cursor correct inside the recording. The only kind of sort of answer to that is, or reply to that is, well, technically there is a cursor effect that is smoothing, cursor smoothing, that allows you, if you were like kind of moving at a different path, it'll smooth it out so it looks like just one continuous path. But for the most part, if you've recorded, you can't move, you can't adjust, you can't add it in later or anything like that. So, so the first part is we can do cursor smoothing if we add that effect, and there are other effects that we want to talk about here. So let's go back to Camtasia. Let's look at the different effects we can do with this clip. So what I'm going to do, let's zoom in a little bit here so we can still see what's going on up here. What I want to do in this clip is look at adding those cursor effects. And to do that, actually, let me zoom back out. I'm going to go over here to the left to cursor effects, and I'll click that. And I can see I have a few cursor effects. The first one, cursor smoothing, is the one I just mentioned. But let's choose spotlight so we can see this rather easily. So let's grab this. I'm just going to drag it down here, and then I'll zoom in so we can see this a little easier. Now, when I dragged that down, you can see that here it is highlighting. It is applying that cursor effect to this clip. Now, I can only apply it to clips that have the screen recording. I can't apply this clip to something else. Can't apply this clip to something that doesn't have the recording. So it has to be a Camtasia screen recording file that applies any cursor effects. You can't take a screenshot and try to apply it to that. You can't take an MP4 or other video file and apply it there. It has to be in a TechSmith recording file or a TREC file to apply these cursor effects. Okay, so that's one thing that's important to look at. Next, then, I want to talk about with the cursor effects. Let me zoom in on my timeline here. Maybe that's a little too far. And I want to expand this. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. If we look, let me zoom in even further. If I look, there's this up arrow or this little triangle that will allow me to expand and show the effects. So when I do, I see, yep, here's the spotlight effect that I've added. Now, I can grab other effects. I can drag in, for example, the magnify cursor effect, and that's here as well. And so another part of this question, another way to interpret this question is, can we apply multiple effects? And as you can see here, yes, absolutely, we can apply multiple effects. You have the ability to pull in a couple different things. So I can both spotlight and magnify. So dim everything and zoom in at the same time. One of the things I think that's perhaps overlooked or something that people aren't aware of is with these cursor effects, you can change the timing on them. And we think with most effects, most visual effects, we're applying it to the entire clip. We think about, oh, okay, I want to take this clip and I want to remove the green background or something like that. So we just do that to the whole clip. with cursor effects, we have the ability to just narrow that in to a specific amount of time. And that makes sense. We don't always want the screen to go dark, perhaps, for Spotlight. So let's look at that here in Camtasia. So I'm looking down here, and I see, if I look closely on the left, so let's zoom in here. On the left, there is this grabbing area that I can take, and I can drag this in. And when I do that, notice that up here, the spotlight went away. So what I could do is say, well, let's just use the magnifier at this first part. And we can't really see much of what's going on there. Let's zoom out a little bit. So where is that magnifier? So there he is. He comes in. The magnifier is on. And then the magnifier goes off during this time. And then at this point, this is where the spotlight comes in because I want to look at that specific area. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I want to have the magnifier there as well. Can I do that? Sure. So let's grab that magnification option and drag that in. And now I have it on. I have the magnification on here at the beginning, and then I have it off, and then I have it on again. So let's zoom back in here, and I can change the end time for this as well. So I might say just during this period right here, yep, maybe I want it to end right around here. I want both the magnification and the spotlight to be on. So here you can see where you can add sections of time where you say, let's have this effect on, let's turn it off, let's turn it back on, let's turn it off. And it's multiple effects that you can apply simultaneously. So a lot of neat options here with cursor effects. Again, when we think about those effects in that bar, a lot of times it's just applied to the entire clip that we're working in. But here you can see that you can change the time and say, let's just start it here and end it here. One other thing that's probably important to go to, let's take a look here in the properties panel. I'm going to zoom here to the upper right, is when I have spotlight effect selected, notice there's an ease in and an ease out. And what I can do is I can use the up arrow and say, you know what, ease in over half a second and ease out over half a second. Oh, I guess I can't do it that long because the effect, I don't have it on for an entire second. Or yeah, there we go. So now if I look at this, notice how it will dim. Whoops. It dims and then it stays there and then it comes back. So I have eased in and eased out that effect by saying just over a span of time, you know, darken everything, keep it there, and then bring everything back. So when we see that ease in and ease out, let's look back at the other one, the magnifying glass. We can do the same thing. We have an ease in and an ease out on the magnifying, and I'll just, you know, bump that up as well. Half a second there, half a second there. And then as we look at this, it looks like a normal mouse. And then, or a normal cursor, it starts to grow and get dark. And then it stays big and then goes back down to its regular size. So just showing you again, multiple ways of adding effects, changing the timing, applying those effects at the same time, and easing those in and out. Think of it like a transition almost for your cursor effect. Okay, now let's take a look at our last question. And in this question it says, we're talking about animation, animating people or animals won't work in Camtasia. There was a question before this. How about animating, for example, a chart? Each bar coming in after the other, or charts moving up and down to represent an increase or decrease. Is that possible? And the answer for that is yes, that is possible. What I would do, let's slide in over here. I want to show you one thing that I've done in the past. And this is just animating these rectangles. So what I did in the past was I had this element. I was showing somebody like a 1280 by 720 and then having it grow to 1920 by 1080. And so people ask, how did you make that grow? Well, it's the same principle, it's the same concept that I want to show you here. So I'm going to go into my clip. I'm just going to use a Shift-A to add an animation. And yeah, I will just leave it right here. It doesn't matter where that animation is. I'll zoom in a little bit on the timeline. I'll also zoom in so you can see this. I think you'll be able to see everything. Maybe you can't. Let's grab this and we'll just drag it down here so we can see both things happening at the same time. So what I did was I said I wanted to grow it. Oh, okay. It's going to move too. All right, let's remove that. Sorry. We'll delete that. So you can also right click, remove all animations, which is what I'm going to do. Let's start down here. All right, Shift-A. So I said I want this to look like it's growing, which means I want this end state to be this, but I want the starting state to be smaller. So all I did was I moved to the earlier part of the animation, to the first part of the animation. I held down the Alt key on my keyboard, which changed these resizing handles to squares. And then I just said, just make it smaller, just crop it down to this size. Okay, so now when I play through this, it expands that image, right? It looks like it grows. Well, I'm not actually growing it. What I'm really doing is saying, start with it cropped and then uncrop it. I'm not really sure what the opposite of crop is. I'm going to say uncrop. I'm sure there's probably a term. If you know what the term is, put it in the description or leave a comment below and let me know. But I'm going to say uncrop. Okay, so that's really all you have to do with your charts as well. So I'm going to go back to Camtasia. I'm going to swing over here. I happen to have an empty chart sitting here, and it has some dates. And what I could do is a similar thing. I can go in and I will just grab an annotation, and we're talking about a bar chart specifically. So I will go over and grab a rectangle. If you know me, you know I like to grab bold because it has nice square edges on it. And I'm going to drag this down here. And let's say we want this shape to be, I don't know, red. We'll make it, oh, that's too bright. Okay, doesn't matter. We want this to be red, and I'm going to put it here for September. And September's number is, right here at 300. Okay, so the question is, how do I animate this thing? So I would start here. If you started with your empty chart, that would be fine. And then you say, all right, I want to bring in this first item. So this is the after. What I recommend is starting with what you want the end result to be. And that's really what I did on the previous one. Start with the end result, the after. I want it to be this big. I want it to be in this position. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go backward and I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to crop it down or resize it, either one. So let's look at how I would do that. Let's go ahead and zoom in to this area. And I'm going to, actually, let me zoom back out. Of course, the first thing I want to do is add an animation. So I'm going to Shift A to add that. And I'm going to drag that in, over here toward the beginning. And what I want to do now is at the beginning, I want this state, let's zoom back in again. I want the state to be smaller. So a couple of ways to do this. One way that I've done it is I will shrink this down like that size. So that it's just the tiniest, like it's just a line. Let me zoom in. Let's zoom in and just show you here. So I zoom way in, you can see that's really all it is. It's just a line. Okay, just nothing. So, but if I go through, and I'm going to go frame by frame, when I go through here, you can see that it's now growing, and then it grows up. Okay, so that's a little bit different. I wonder if that's because of the type of animation. Let me just try linear instead of auto. See if that makes any difference. It does. Okay, so I would choose linear in that case to make sure that as it's growing, it is growing up. So it doesn't like kind of bounce out of the frame. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And that's really all I would do. I would do that for the first one. Let's zoom back out. I would do the same thing for the second. So I would basically take this same thing. I would copy it, Control C, Control V to paste. I would move over for October, kind of set up the same situation. Oop, Control Z. I didn't grab October. Okay, I want this. There we go, to be October's. I would do the same thing. This is the after state, is nice and tall. Actually, let's zoom back out. Let's make this after state even bigger. Right, so October's numbers were up to 515, it looks like. I don't know. So now we'll go back before it. And, oh, okay, let's undo that. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo the last couple things I did. All right. What I really want to do is go up here to the upper right and say, let's edit all animations. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to drag this over. The reason I'm going to do that, oops, is when I do all animations, now you can see it starts at the bottom and grows up here. And we said this one would go up to this point. Okay. So then I would Control C to copy and Control V to paste again. Ooh, Control Z. Sorry, I just want this one. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And now I have November's. And I would go in and, adjust November's number. So the starting place, I'm not sure why it's starting this high. That's okay. Oh, I do know why it's starting that high, because I have it on all animations. Okay. All right. So let me go back here. Let me go back up to the top, turn that off. And so for October, we want that to start super small. So we're going to just shrink that down. Looks like I can't get any smaller than that, which is interesting. It's like that's the minimum, like 1% or something like that. Let's see if we can do the same thing for November. See if we can make that smaller. No, it looks like the same thing for November. Okay, so in this case, what I would do, instead of just resizing, using those resizing handles, let's go over here and I will copy and paste. Instead of doing the resizing, let's do this. Let's take this and we're just going to do a crop like I was mentioning before. So I'm going to go to the beginning of this. It is shrunk down. I'm going to right click and just say copy properties, come over here to the beginning, right click and paste properties. Yep, that was not what I was expecting. Okay, so we're going to undo that, Control Z, and I'm just going to do what I did before, remove all animations. And we want this after state. Control Z, I want this to be bigger. See if I can, no, it's just making me move it. All right. Let's zoom in. Nope. See if I can do it this way. If I can just get that top part. There we go. All right. So whatever that number is, we'll say it's 400. That's my after state. I will go down here to the clip itself, Shift A to add. And before the animation, I'm going to hold down Alt and just crop this down to, again, all the way down. I can't make it 0, right? I can't crop it down to absolutely nothing. So it looks like it's like 1 pixel wide. But if I go ahead and play this now, it grows up to that point. And then, you know, this is September of 2019. If you wanted to show what September 2020 looks like, then you could say, oh, well, in September 2020, let's add another animation. We actually went up to this point, right? And I can stretch it up to that point. So now we start at 0, we grow up to here, and then after a few more seconds, it grows up to there. Only I would make that linear. There we go. If you needed to do something like that, or if the numbers went down. So that's a nice simple way of doing this. Of course, you would want to add all the different months or whatever it is that you want to add. The two options again are just to resize it or to use Alt to crop out parts of that rectangle. So those are the things that I have for you today. I'm going to jump over real quick and make sure there are no questions. It doesn't look like there are any questions. That's fine. So that's, yeah, I mean, that's what I have for you today. So thank you so much for stopping by. If you have questions, you can find me at cammastery.com, again, where you can go to learn more about how to make great videos with Camtasia. And I will see you in another video. Thanks for stopping by.